Ambassador Hai stood before the Galactic Council, her hands trembling with barely controlled rage. The chamber was massive, carved from crystal that caught the light of 3 suns. Hundreds of alien species filled the viewing galleries, their strange eyes watching her with cold indifference. She had been standing here for 3 hours, showing them evidence. Images of burned cities, records of transmissions, the final screams of 43,000 human souls as Council warships turned New Sejong into ash and glass. The holographic display showed the last moments. Children running through streets as plasma fire rained from above. Hospitals exploding. Ships trying to evacuate, only to be shot down as they fled. The entire colony had been defenseless. They had broken no laws. They had simply existed in a place the Council decided belonged to someone else. This was murder, Hai said, her voice echoing in the vast chamber. Unprovoked, unjustified. We demand justice. Council Speaker Vrix lounged on his floating throne, his 4 arms draped lazily over the armrests. He was a Keltheran, one of the oldest and most powerful species in known space. His species had ruled the Council for 10,000 years. To him, humanity was nothing. A species that had barely left their own solar system a few centuries ago. Ambassador, Vrix said with a voice like grinding rocks, your colony was warned. The territory had been disputed for decades. Your people chose to ignore proper procedures. They were farmers, Hai shouted, losing her composure. Families. They had lived there for 20 years. Acceptable collateral damage, another council member said. This one was covered in scales that shimmered blue and green. The galaxy is vast, human. These things happen. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Not from all species, but from enough. The major powers, the old ones, they all found this amusing. Humanity had come begging for justice, and they were being dismissed like children who didn't understand how the universe worked. Hai closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She had known this would happen. Command had warned her, but they had to try. They had to give the Council one chance. We have documented proof that New Sejong posed no threat, she continued, forcing calm into her voice. We have shown you communications where our people begged for mercy. We have given you everything required under Council law. What is your response? Vrix waved one hand dismissively. The matter is closed. The Keltheran fleet acted within established protocols. If humanity wishes to file a formal complaint, the process will take approximately 40 standard years to review. 40 years? Hai whispered. Perhaps less? Perhaps more. Vrix leaned forward, his massive frame casting a shadow over her. Let me be clear, Ambassador. Your species is young. You do not understand how things work here. You were given permission to exist in Council space as a courtesy. Do not mistake that courtesy for equality. He gestured to a display that appeared in the air between them. It showed Earth's military fleet. Destroyers armed with railguns, cruisers with missile batteries. To human eyes, they were impressive. Humanity's finest achievements in military engineering. The Council chamber erupted in mocking laughter. Your toy boats, Vrix said with contempt, dripping from every word. You think these primitive weapons frighten anyone? The Keltheran Empire alone has 70,000 warships, each one more advanced than your entire fleet combined. The Council maintains order because we have the power to do so. You have nothing. Hai felt something cold settle in her chest. This was it, the moment Command had anticipated. She reached into her jacket and pulled out a small data chip. She held it up so the Council could see. I am authorized, she said slowly, to deliver one final message. Humanity demands justice for New Sejong. You have 72 hours to respond with appropriate reparations and a formal apology. If you do not, there will be consequences. The laughter grew louder. Vrix smiled, showing rows of crystalline teeth. Or what, little human? You'll send your toy boats to attack us? You'll declare war on the entire Galactic Council? He stood up, his massive form towering over everything. Go home, Ambassador. Bury your dead. Accept that you are small and you are weak, and you will remain that way for 10,000 years if you survive that long. Hai placed the data chip on the podium in front of her. I am transmitting formal notice as required by council regulations. You have been warned. She turned and walked out of the chamber. Behind her, the aliens laughed and jeered. Some threw insults in languages she didn't speak. Others simply ignored her, returning to their own business as if she had never existed. As she walked through the crystal corridors of Illuminar Prime, Hai activated her secure communication device. This is Hai, she said quietly. Notification delivered. Council response is total rejection. On the other end, millions of light years away in a hidden facility on Earth, Admiral Tay listened to her report. He was an old man, his face lined with the weight of command. He had served in Earth's military for 50 years. He had fought in the border wars. He had seen friends die, and he had spent the last 15 years preparing for this exact moment. Understood, Ambassador, Tay said. Return to the embassy and await further orders. He closed the connection and looked at the screen in front of him. It showed a vessel so secret that only 12 people in all of humanity knew it existed. 12 kilometers of death and fury, hidden in a dark nebula where no sensors could detect it. Admiral Tay entered his authorization code, then he entered a second code, then a third. Each one verified by genetic scan and retinal pattern. Each one necessary to unlock what came next. Across the vast distance of space, in a nebula that had no name on any map, systems began to activate. Power cores that had been dormant for years hummed to life. Weapons that had never been fired charged their capacitors. Shields that could stop a star flickered into existence. On the bridge of the Eternal Resolve, Captain Han opened his eyes. He had been in cryosleep, waiting. His entire crew had been waiting. 12,000 of humanity's best warriors, scientists, and engineers. All volunteers. All ready. Captain, his first officer said, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what was happening. We have received activation codes from Earth Command. Han stood up from his chair and looked at the main display. It showed their destination, Illuminar Prime, the heart of the Galactic Council, the place where aliens had laughed at human suffering. How long to prepare for jump? Han asked. 18 hours, sir. All systems are coming online now. Han nodded slowly. He walked to the forward viewport and stared out at the swirling darkness of the nebula. Somewhere beyond that darkness, the Council sat in their crystal towers, thinking they were safe. Thinking they were untouchable. Begin jump calculations, Han ordered. Target, Illuminar system. When we arrive, I want every weapon hot and ready. Yes, sir. Han allowed himself a small, cold smile. The Council had called Earth's ships toys. They had laughed at humanity's grief. They had made a very simple mistake. They had assumed humans were weak. In 18 hours, the universe would learn the truth. The alarms started screaming across every Council monitoring station in the Illuminar system at exactly the same moment. Thousands of technicians jumped in their seats, staring at displays that showed something impossible. A gravity anomaly had appeared at the edge of the system. Not the normal distortion of a ship dropping out of faster-than-light travel. This was different. This was massive. The sensors couldn't make sense of the readings. Some showed a singularity. Others showed nothing at all. A few simply displayed error messages and shut down. Fleet Admiral Kren was in his private quarters when his second-in-command burst through the door without knocking. Sir, we have an emergency. Unknown vessel entering the system. Kren stood up, his expression annoyed. He was Keltherin, like Council Speaker Vrix, and he commanded the Illuminar Defense Fleet. 300 warships, the finest in Council space. Nothing entered this system without his permission. Unknown vessel? Identify and order it to leave immediately. Sir, you need to see this yourself. Something in his officer's voice made Kren move faster. They rushed to the command center, where dozens of technicians worked in controlled chaos. Every screen showed the same thing. The anomaly was growing. What am I looking at? Kren demanded. We don't know, sir. The gravitational readings are off the scale. Whatever is coming through is enormous. Enormous? How enormous? The technician hesitated. If our sensors are correct, sir, it's larger than anything we've ever seen. Larger than a battle station. Larger than a mobile habitat. It's The sensors cleared. The anomaly collapsed. And there, where empty space had been just moments before, hung something that made every being in the command center stop and stare. The eternal resolve had arrived. It was 12 kilometers long, a massive shape of dark metal and purpose. Running lights flickered along its hull, revealing weapons platforms that stretched for hundreds of meters. The ship's profile was sleek despite its size, clearly built for war. Energy readings spiked across every spectrum. The thing radiated power like a star. "By the ancients," someone whispered. Kren stared at the display, his mind racing. "Classification? Unknown, sir. The design doesn't match anything in our databases. The hull composition is... we can't identify it. The energy signature is reading higher than our entire defense fleet combined. That's impossible." "Yes, sir. But that's what the sensors show." Kren's hands curled into fists. "All ships to battle stations. Scramble the fleet. I want that thing surrounded and targeted immediately." Across the system, 300 Council warships activated their engines and began moving into position. They were beautiful ships, designed over thousands of years of warfare. Each one carried enough firepower to crack a planet's crust. Together, they had never lost a battle. They formed up in a spherical formation around the eternal resolve, weapons charging. From the outside, it looked like a swarm of angry insects surrounding a whale. The size difference was stunning. On the bridge of the eternal resolve, Captain Han watched the Council fleet take position. He sat in his command chair, calm and still. Around him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency. "Sir, we're being hailed by the Council fleet commander," Lieutenant Wu reported from the helm station. "Put him on." The main screen flickered and showed Admiral Kren's angry face. "Unknown vessel. You have entered restricted Council space without authorization. Identify yourself immediately or be destroyed." Han let the silence stretch for a few moments. Then he leaned forward slightly. "This is Captain Han of the Earth warship Eternal Resolve. We have come for justice." Kren's expression shifted from anger to confusion. "Earth? You're human?" "We are." "This is your response? One ship?" Kren laughed, a harsh sound. "You've made a mistake, human. This is the Illuminar Defense Fleet. 300 warships. Surrender now and you may survive to face trial." Commander Sung, sitting at the tactical station, spoke without looking away from his displays. "Captain, they're powering weapons. All 300 ships have targeting locks on us." Han nodded slowly. "Expected. Activate shields." "Shields active, sir." On every Council ship, sensors registered a new energy signature blooming around the Eternal Resolve. A barrier of some kind, but unlike any shielding technology they had seen before, it seemed to bend light itself. "One ship against 300, Kren said, his voice full of contempt. "You humans truly are fools. Last chance." "Surrender, or—" "No," Han interrupted. "You surrender." The word hung in space like a challenge. On the Council command ship, officers looked at each other in disbelief. On the Eternal Resolve, the crew waited for their captain's orders. Kren's face darkened. "You dare? This is a Council world. The heart of galactic civilization. Fire! Destroy that ship." 300 warships opened fire at once. Plasma bolts by the thousands. Missiles that could track targets across star systems. Energy beams that could slice through asteroids. All of it converged on the Eternal Resolve in a display of destruction that lit up the darkness of space. The light was so intense it could be seen from the surface of Illuminar Prime. People looked up at the sky and watched the stars flicker and burn. On the bridge of the Eternal Resolve, not a single alarm sounded. "Shield status?" Han asked calmly. "Absorbing all incoming fire, sir," Commander Sung reported. "The adaptive systems are analyzing their weapon signatures. Shield strength at 98% and rising." "Rising?" "Yes, sir. The shields are converting their weapon energy into power. The more they shoot at us, the stronger we get." Han allowed himself a small smile. "Dr. Yuna, are you monitoring galactic communications?" Dr. Yuna, the chief science officer, nodded without looking up from her station. "Yes, sir. Emergency channels are lighting up across 47 species networks. Multiple translations, but they're all asking the same question, which is, What is that thing? The Council fleet continued firing. For 2 full minutes, they poured everything they had into the Eternal Resolve, enough firepower to sterilize a dozen planets. And still the human ship sat there, untouched, shields glowing brighter with each impact. Finally, Admiral Kren ordered a ceasefire. The silence was deafening. On Council ships, crews stared at their displays in growing horror. They had used a significant portion of their ammunition. Their weapons had overheated. Some systems had failed from the sustained fire, and the human ship looked exactly the same as before. Not a scratch, not a dent, nothing. Analysis, Kren ordered, his voice quiet now. Sir, their shields didn't just block our weapons. They absorbed the energy. Every shot we fired made them stronger. I've never seen anything like it. That's impossible. That technology doesn't exist. Apparently, sir, it does. Captain Han stood up on his bridge. He walked to the forward viewport and looked out at the Council fleet. 300 ships that suddenly seemed very small. Open a channel, he said. All frequencies. I want everyone to hear this. Lieutenant Wu worked his controls. Channel open, sir, broadcasting across the entire system. Han's voice, when he spoke, was calm and cold. This is Captain Han, of the Earth warship Eternal Resolve. 72 hours ago, my government delivered a message to the Galactic Council. We demanded justice for the massacre at New Sejong. 43,000 human civilians were murdered by Council ships. We asked for reparations and apology. He paused, letting his words sink in across countless receivers. The Council laughed at us. They called our ships toys. They called us weak. They said we had nothing. Han's expression hardened. Your turn is over. Now it's ours. He turned to Commander Sung. Target the Council fleet formation. Fire one shot. Singularity lance. Maximum power. Sung's fingers moved across his console. Target acquired, sir. Singularity lance charging. On every Council ship, new alarms began to scream. Their sensors detected something building inside the Eternal Resolve. A point of impossible density. A weapon that bent reality itself. Evasive maneuvers, Kren shouted. All ships scatter. Too late. The Singularity Lance fired. It appeared as a tiny point of absolute darkness that shot across space faster than thought. It touched the first Council ship, and the vessel simply ceased to exist, collapsing into nothing. Then the second ship. Then the third. The lance shot traveled in a perfectly straight line through space, and every ship in its path died. No explosions, no fire, just instant annihilation as matter itself was compressed beyond existence. 23 ships vanished in less than 2 seconds. The remaining 277 Council vessels broke formation in pure panic. Ships that had held the line against pirate fleets and hostile armadas scattered like frightened fish. Captain Han sat back down in his command chair and watched them run. Now, he said quietly, they understand. The Council fleet scattered in every direction, their perfect formations breaking apart like glass under a hammer. Ships that had held position for decades suddenly fled in terror, their crews seeing something they had never imagined possible. 23 of their own had simply stopped existing. On the surface of Illuminar Prime, millions watched the sky with growing fear. The lights of battle painted the darkness in colors that hurt to look at. The most protected world in the galaxy was under attack, and their mighty fleet was running. Fleet Admiral Kren gripped his command chair so hard his claws dug into the metal. All ships regroup. Formation Delta 7. Do not break ranks. But his orders met chaos. Ship captains who had trained for centuries suddenly forgot their discipline. The humans had fired one shot, just one, and it had killed 23 ships without effort. What would happen when they fired again? Sir, multiple ships are requesting permission to jump to faster than light, his communications officer reported. They want to retreat. Denied. Any ship that flees will face execution for cowardice. Kren's voice was desperate now. We are the Illuminar Defense Fleet. We do not run. On the Eternal Resolve, Commander Sung watched the Council ships try to reform. They're attempting to regroup, sir. Formation patterns suggest they're preparing for another assault. Captain Han nodded. How predictable. They still think this is a battle they can win. Lieutenant Wu, bring us about. Let's show them what real maneuverability looks like. Yes, sir. The massive warship began to move, and every sensor operator in the Council fleet felt their blood turn cold. A ship 12 kilometers long should move like a drifting moon, slow and ponderous. But the Eternal Resolve moved like a fighter craft. It spun and accelerated with impossible grace. Gravity manipulation drives pushing it in ways that violated everything the Council knew about physics. That's impossible, someone whispered on Kren's bridge. A ship that size can't move like that. Apparently it can, Kren said through clenched teeth. All ships, open fire. Target their engines. The Council fleet fired again, concentrating their weapons on the Eternal Resolve's rear section. Thousands of plasma bolts and missiles streaked across space. And once again, the human shields absorbed everything. The glowing barrier around the ship actually grew brighter, feeding on the energy being thrown at it. They're still not taking damage, sir, Kren's tactical officer reported. Their shields are adapting to our weapon signatures. Each shot we fire teaches them how to defend better. Then we need something they haven't seen before, Kren said. He activated a secure channel. Council Command, this is Fleet Admiral Kren. I am requesting authorization to deploy Nova weapons. There was a pause. Nova weapons were banned, except in cases of extreme emergency. They were designed to destroy entire planets. Using them in a populated system was almost unthinkable. Authorization granted, came the response. End this quickly. Kren felt sick, but he gave the order. 3 of his battleships activated their Nova torpedo systems. Each torpedo contained enough antimatter to crack a moon in half. They launched in a spread pattern, traveling at incredible speed. On the Eternal Resolve, alarms finally sounded. Nova weapons detected, Commander Sung reported. 3 torpedoes incoming. Impact in 40 seconds. Captain Han didn't move from his chair. Counter missiles. Interception pattern Omega. Sir, those are Nova-class weapons. If even one gets through, they won't. Fire. The Eternal Resolve's point defense systems activated. Hundreds of small missiles launched from ports along the hull, each one controlled by AI systems faster than any biological mind. They spread out in a perfect web, calculating trajectories and interception points. The Nova torpedoes never had a chance. The counter missiles hit them 3,000 kilometers away from the Eternal Resolve. 3 small suns blossomed in space as antimatter met matter and annihilated itself in bursts of pure energy. The shock waves rocked nearby Council ships. One cruiser, too close to the blast, had its shields overloaded and spun out of control. But the Eternal Resolve sat in the center of the firestorm, completely untouched. Enough games, Captain Han said quietly. Commander Sung, activate the reality anchors. I want every ship in this system locked in normal space. Yes, sir. Something changed in the fabric of space itself. On every Council ship, faster-than-light drives suddenly went offline. Engineers stared at their systems in confusion. The drives were working perfectly, but space itself refused to let them jump. It was like trying to run through concrete. Sir, we can't jump to FTL, Kren's navigator reported in panic. Something is preventing us from entering hyperspace. What do you mean something is preventing you? I don't know how to explain it, sir. The drives work, but space won't let us through. It's like there's a barrier. Kren realized what had happened. The humans had trapped them. All 277 remaining ships were now locked in normal space with no way to escape. They could either fight or surrender. All ships, Kren said, his voice hard with determination. We are warriors of the Council. We do not surrender to primitives. Attack pattern Omega. Focus all fire on one section of their hull. We break through or we die trying. The Council fleet formed up for one final assault. Every ship poured its remaining power into weapons. They charged forward in a wedge formation, all fire concentrated on a single point on the Eternal Resolve's hull. Captain Han watched them come. Impressive dedication, he said, but dedication doesn't stop physics. Commander Sung, activate railgun batteries. Fire at will. Along the Eternal Resolve's hull, hundreds of hatches opened. Railgun batteries emerged, each one 30 meters long. They began to fire. The tungsten rounds traveled at 30% the speed of light. Each one carried the kinetic energy of a nuclear weapon, and there were hundreds of them firing simultaneously. Council ships began to die, not from explosions or plasma fire, but from simple kinetic force. The rounds punched through shields and hulls like paper. Ships broke apart or spun away, trailing atmosphere. The railguns fired with mechanical precision, each shot calculated to disable rather than destroy. But some ships were too slow or too unlucky. They vanished in bursts of debris and fire. "Missiles away," Commander Sung reported. "AI guidance systems active." From launch bays along the Eternal Resolve, thousands of missiles emerged. But these weren't normal weapons. Each one contained an artificial intelligence that could learn and adapt in real time. They weaved through space, avoiding Council defense fire, learning from each attempt to stop them. They found their targets with perfect accuracy. Ships that tried to shoot them down found the missiles dodging in patterns that seemed to predict the defensive fire. Engines exploded. Weapon systems went offline. Shields collapsed. In 18 minutes, 200 Council warships were destroyed or disabled. The survivors floated dead in space, their crews either abandoned or unconscious. Only 77 ships remained, and they had stopped firing. One by one, they powered down their weapons and broadcast surrender signals. Fleet Admiral Kren sat in his damaged command chair, staring at the tactical display. His fleet was gone. The pride of the Council military had been destroyed by a single human ship in less than half an hour. His communications officer, voice shaking, said, "Sir, we're being hailed by the human vessel." "Put it on." Captain Han appeared on the screen. His face was calm, showing no triumph or joy, just cold purpose. "Admiral Kren," Han said, "your fleet is defeated. I am leaving your ship intact so you can witness what happens next. You will watch and remember. The massacre of New Sejong has been answered. This is what happens when you mistake humanity's mercy for weakness." "You've started a war you cannot win," Kren said, trying to sound defiant. "The Council has thousands of fleets, millions of ships. You're just one vessel." "Am I?" Han's expression didn't change. "You made assumptions about us, Admiral. You assumed we were weak. You assumed we had nothing. You were wrong. And now you'll take a message back to your Council." He leaned forward slightly. "Tell them that humanity tried peace. We begged for justice. We followed every rule they demanded. And they laughed at us. They mocked our grief. They called our murdered children acceptable collateral damage." Han's voice grew colder. "Those days are over. The sleeping predators have awakened. The galaxy will learn a new truth. You can share the stars with us in peace, or you can burn in war. The choice is yours. But you will never, never harm humans without consequence again." The transmission ended. Captain Han turned to his communications officer. "Broadcast that message on all frequencies. I want every species in the galaxy to hear it." "Yes, sir." Across the galaxy, on 1,000 worlds and 10,000 stations, beings of every species heard the human captain's words. They saw the footage of the battle. They watched as one human ship destroyed the Illuminar defense fleet with methodical efficiency. And for the first time in recorded history, the galaxy felt fear of a new species. In the council chambers on Illuminar Prime, Speaker Vrix watched the sky and understood that everything had changed. The humans had not sent toy boats. They had sent a nightmare. Ambassador Hai walked through the crystal corridors of the council building with her head held high. The aliens who passed her in the hallways looked away now. No more mockery. No more laughter. Just fear in their strange eyes. The Eternal Resolve hung in orbit above Illuminar Prime like a dark promise. Its weapons were still active, tracking every ship that moved in the system. The debris field from the destroyed Council fleet drifted in space as a reminder of what happened to those who underestimated humanity. She entered the Council chambers for the second time in a week. The vast room was packed now. Representatives from every major species had arrived, summoned by emergency protocols. The viewing galleries were full of beings who had never bothered to attend before. Council Speaker Vrix sat on his floating throne, but he no longer lounged. He sat straight and rigid, his forearms held close to his body. He looked smaller somehow. "The Council recognizes Ambassador Hai of Earth," an automated voice announced. Hai walked to the center of the floor. She carried a data pad in her hands, but she didn't need to look at it. She had memorized every word. Honored representatives, she began, her voice clear and strong. I return to present humanity's terms. I trust the demonstration in orbit has clarified our position. Silence. No one laughed now. Earth demands the following. Full financial reparations for the massacre at New Sejong Colony. The amount is listed in detail in the document I am submitting. Second, a formal public apology from the Council for the unprovoked attack. Third, complete autonomy for all human-controlled space. Fourth, recognition of Earth as a sovereign military power with full voting rights in this council. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some species looked angry, others looked resigned. A few looked like they wanted to flee. Speaker Vrix cleared his throat. Ambassador, these terms require discussion among the member species. We will need time to consider. A beam of light cut through the sky outside, visible through the crystal walls. It passed within 10 meters of the council spire, close enough that beings could feel the heat through the walls. In the distance, a moon that had orbited Illuminar Prime for billions of years simply vanished, turned to vapor by the Singularity Lance. The entire council building shook. Alarms screamed. Representatives dove for cover. When the shaking stopped, Hai was still standing calmly in the center of the floor. She checked her watch. You have 1 hour, she said simply. Vrix looked at her with something close to hatred. But behind that hatred was fear. This is extortion, terrorism. You cannot threaten the council in its own chambers. Can't I? Hai gestured to the sky where the eternal resolve hung like a sword waiting to fall. Speaker Vrix, my people tried peace. We tried diplomacy. We followed your laws. And you murdered our children. Now we're done asking. You have 1 hour to accept these terms, or Captain Han will demonstrate what humanity is truly capable of. You're bluffing, someone said from the galleries. One ship cannot threaten the entire council. Hai smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Test that theory if you wish. I'm sure Captain Han would be happy to provide another demonstration. A younger council member stood up. His name was Aaron, and he represented a species that had always stayed quiet in council debates. Speaker Vrix, perhaps we should consider the ambassador's terms. The battle footage has been analyzed by our military experts. The human vessel used technology we cannot match. They have gravity weapons, adaptive shielding, and AI systems far beyond our capabilities. And they built it in secret. Who knows what else they have? We cannot bow to threats, Vrix shouted. We already have, Aaron replied quietly. The moment that ship destroyed our fleet, we lost. The question now is whether we accept peace or face complete destruction. Behind the scenes, in secured communication channels, council military leaders reviewed the battle footage for the 100th time. Analysts from 40 species worked together, trying to understand how humanity had achieved such technological superiority. One analyst, working in a deep research facility, found something in Earth's history files. A discovery made decades ago in their outer solar system. A probe, ancient and alien, found frozen in Saturn's rings. The official report said it was studied and contained nothing useful. The analyst dug deeper and found classified files that had been hidden, but not well enough. The probe had contained data from a species the Council had only heard rumors about. The Architects. A civilization that had vanished 1,000,000 years ago, leaving behind technology that made the Council's greatest achievements look primitive. Humanity hadn't invented their weapons. They had found a teacher. The analyst sent the report through encrypted channels to Counselor Aaron. Within minutes, it reached other moderate council members. They understood now. Humanity had stumbled upon something the Council had been searching for throughout history. And instead of sharing it, they had weaponized it. Back in the council chambers, the hour was running out. Speaker Vrix tried one last time. Ambassador Hai, even if we wanted to accept your terms, the reparations you demand would bankrupt several member species. The amount is absurd. The amount equals exactly what it cost you to build and maintain the fleet that attacked New Sejong, Hai replied. You had the resources to murder us. You have the resources to pay for it. And if we refuse? High's expression hardened. Then General Day and his Marines will land on this world, not as invaders, but as permanent peacekeepers. You will accept our terms one way or another. The only question is how many of your people die first. As if summoned by his name, new contacts appeared on Council sensors. Troop transports dropping out of faster-than-light travel. 50 ships carrying General Day's forces. They took position around Illuminar Prime, clearly ready to land. Counselor Aaron stood up again. I move that we accept Earth's terms immediately. We have nothing to gain from continued resistance and everything to lose. Seconded, another voice called. Thirded. More voices joined in. Species that had never agreed on anything suddenly united in their desire to survive. Speaker Vrix looked around the chamber and saw his support crumbling. Very well, he said, his voice hollow. We will vote. All in favor of accepting Earth's terms? The vote was nearly unanimous. Only a handful of species abstained. Not a single vote was cast against. Vrix slumped in his throne. The motion passes. Earth's demands are accepted. Hai activated her communicator. Captain Han, the Council has accepted our terms. You may stand down. Han's voice came back calm and professional. Understood, Ambassador. Inform them that Earth will be monitoring their compliance closely. General Day's forces will remain in orbit as a permanent embassy guard. Permanent, Vrix said weakly. Permanent, Hai confirmed, just to ensure there are no misunderstandings in the future. Over the next 3 days, the Treaty of Illuminar was written and signed. Every Council member species added their seal to the document. The reparations began transferring to Earth accounts. Formal apologies were broadcast across the galaxy. But the real change wasn't in the documents. It was in how every species now looked at humanity. Where there had been contempt, now there was respect. Where there had been mockery, now there was caution. Some species immediately sent diplomatic requests to Earth, seeking alliances. Others pulled their fleets back from human borders, wanting no conflicts. A few began desperate research programs, trying to duplicate human technology. Dr. Yuna, monitoring communications from the Eternal Resolve, compiled a report for Captain Han. She found mentions of humanity in over 300,000 separate transmissions across the galaxy. Some were fearful, some were respectful, some were planning how to counter the human threat. But all of them said variations of the same thing. The galaxy had changed. The old order was broken. A new power had emerged, and it had emerged with fury. On the bridge of the Eternal Resolve, Captain Han read Dr. Yuna's report and felt a weight settle on his shoulders. They had come for justice and received it. But in doing so, they had announced to the entire universe that humanity was no longer prey. They were predators, and predators were always feared. Sir, Lieutenant Wu said quietly, we're receiving a priority message from Earth Command. It's Admiral Tay. Han accepted the transmission in his ready room, alone. The old Admiral's face appeared on the screen, and he looked tired. Captain, you've done well. The Council has capitulated, and the treaty is signed. Humanity has justice for New Sejong. But, Han asked, hearing the unspoken word, but we've also declared ourselves to the galaxy. Every species now knows we have weapons beyond their understanding. Some will seek friendship. Many will seek to destroy us before we grow stronger. Tay paused. There's something else you should know. The Eternal Resolve isn't alone anymore. Han sat forward. Sir? 7 more warships are under construction. The first, Unyielding Dawn, will be ready in 6 months. Captain G will command her. Tay's expression was grim. We built the Eternal Resolve in secret, hoping we'd never need it. Now we're building a fleet because we know we will. Han understood. By seeking justice, they had started something that couldn't be stopped. The galaxy would never see humanity as harmless again. Are we making the right choice, sir? Han asked. Admiral Tay was quiet for a moment. The architects left us a message with their probe. They said the universe is not empty, and it is not kind. They said become strong or become extinct. He looked directly at Han. We've chosen to become strong. Now we have to decide what kind of strong we want to be. The transmission ended, leaving Han alone with his thoughts and the weight of the future. 3 months had passed since the Battle of Illuminar, and the galaxy was still trying to understand what had happened. The Galactic Council, which had ruled for 400,000 years, now operated under the shadow of human warships. General Day's Marines patrolled Illuminar Prime in their distinctive armor, a constant reminder that the old order was gone. Admiral Tay stood in a secure briefing room deep beneath Earth's surface, addressing a gathering of the planet's most powerful leaders. Presidents, prime ministers, and military commanders from every major nation sat in the dim light, watching holographic displays that showed the current state of galactic affairs. "The situation is both better and worse than we expected," Tay began, his weathered face grave. "The Treaty of Illuminar holds. The Council species are paying reparations. Human space is recognized as sovereign territory, but we've created a crisis we didn't anticipate." One of the leaders, a woman from the African Union, spoke up. "What kind of crisis?" Tay gestured, and the display changed, showing a map of known space. Red zones began appearing across it. 34 species are now attempting to reverse engineer gravity weapons and adaptive shields. They're analyzing every second of footage from the battle, trying to understand our technology. "We've started an arms race." "Can they duplicate what we have?" asked a military commander. "Eventually, yes. Maybe not in 10 years, maybe not in 50, but the principles are sound. Once you know something is possible, it becomes easier to achieve." Tay pulled up another display. More concerning are these reports. At least 7 species are discussing preemptive strikes against Earth before we become stronger. The room erupted in concerned murmurs. The European Union representative stood. "Can we defend against multiple species attacking simultaneously? With the eternal resolve alone? No, which is why we've accelerated production on the other warships." Tay showed images of massive construction facilities in the asteroid belt and beyond. "The unyielding Dawn will be operational in 2 months, not 6. We've doubled the workforce and resources. Within 5 years, we'll have a full fleet of 8 warships. 8 against thousands of potential enemies," someone said. "Those aren't good odds." "No," Tay agreed, "which is why we need more than just military solutions." On the Eternal Resolve, still in orbit around Illuminar Prime, Captain Han sat in a private meeting with someone unexpected. Counselor Aaron had requested this discussion through diplomatic channels, and Han had agreed out of curiosity. Aaron was a slender being, his skin changing colors with his emotions. Right now, it showed blue and green, which Han's translator indicated meant sincerity and concern. "Thank you for seeing me, Captain," Aaron said. "I know your people have little reason to trust any council member." "You voted for our treaty without hesitation," Han replied. "That counts for something. What did you want to discuss?" Aaron activated a small holographic display. "I wanted to show you something we discovered. Your species found the Architect probe in your solar system, correct? In Saturn's rings?" Han went very still. That information was supposed to be classified. "How do you know about that?" "Because we've been searching for Architect technology for 300,000 years, Aaron said. "The Architects were the greatest civilization that ever existed. They created wonders we still cannot comprehend. Then they vanished, leaving only fragments behind. You found one of those fragments and unlocked secrets we never could. Why are you telling me this?" Aaron's colors shifted to something that looked like sadness. "Because you need to understand what you've discovered. The Architects didn't just vanish. They were destroyed by something that terrified them so much they left warnings scattered across the galaxy." He pulled up ancient text. "This is from an Architect monument we found 5,000 years ago. It says, 'We reached too far into the dark, and the dark reached back.'" Han felt a chill. "What does that mean?" "We don't know. But every Architect site we've found has similar warnings. They discovered something out in deep space. Something that killed them despite all their power and technology." Aaron looked at Han directly. "Your species has their weapons now. But weapons didn't save the Architects. Whatever killed them was more dangerous than any weapon." "Are you saying humanity is in danger?" "I'm saying the galaxy is in danger. Has been for 1,000,000 years. We've just been too busy fighting each other to notice." Aaron closed the display. The Council species need to stop seeing you as enemies and start understanding that we might need you. Whatever the architects faced, it might still be out there. After Aaron left, Han sat alone for a long time, thinking about those words. He called up the original files from the architect probe. Most of it was technical data about weapons and shields. But there was one file he'd never fully explored, marked with a warning symbol. He opened it. A message played, translated into every human language. The voice was artificial, but somehow conveyed urgency. To whoever finds this, we are the architects. We mastered the stars and bent reality to our will. We thought ourselves invincible. We were wrong. The universe is not empty, and it is not kind. In the dark between galaxies, something waits. Something old, something hungry. We tried to fight it. We failed. All we can do now is leave our knowledge behind and hope the next civilization learns from our mistakes. Become strong. But remember, strength alone is not enough. You must be wise. You must be united. Or you will fall as we did. The message ended. Hans sat in silence, understanding now the weight that humanity had taken on. They hadn't just gained weapons. They had inherited a warning and a responsibility. Across the galaxy, different species reacted to humanity's emergence in different ways. Some, like the Valerians, immediately sought alliance. They sent diplomatic envoys offering trade agreements and military cooperation. Others, like the Kresh Empire, pulled their forces back to defensive positions and began fortifying their borders. But a few species took a different path. In secret facilities, military leaders from the Keltheran Empire, the Drax Collective, and the Thornian Hegemony met in secured communications. They looked at the footage of the Battle of Illuminar and came to a conclusion. The humans must be destroyed before they build more ships, the Keltheran representative said. We attack now with overwhelming force. We saturate their system with so many ships they cannot possibly defend against all of them. Agreed, said the Drax leader. Mobilize everything. This is an existential threat to Council order. They began planning an assault that would involve 15,000 ships from 3 species. It would be the largest military operation in Council history, and it would be aimed at Earth itself. But they didn't know that Dr. Yuna was listening. Her communication monitoring systems had detected the encrypted transmissions. Her AI analysis tools had cracked the codes. Within hours, she had the entire attack plan and transmitted it to Admiral Tay on Earth. Tay looked at the invasion plans and made a decision. He activated emergency protocols and sent a message to Captain G, commander of the nearly complete Unyielding Dawn. Captain, we're accelerating your launch date. We have 3 weeks before an enemy fleet arrives at Earth. Your ship needs to be operational by then. Captain G looked at the incomplete warship around him. Sir, we're still installing weapon systems. The shields aren't fully tested. The crew isn't fully trained. Make it work, Captain. Earth's survival depends on it. In the shipyards, human workers labored around the clock. They installed railgun batteries with hands that shook from exhaustion. They welded hull plates while fighting sleep deprivation. They ran system tests until their eyes blurred. The Unyielding Dawn began to take shape, rushing toward completion in a desperate race against time. On Earth, Admiral Tay addressed the planet's population in a broadcast that reached every nation. Citizens of Earth, I won't lie to you. 3 hostile species are sending a massive fleet to destroy us. They see our strength as a threat. But they've made the same mistake the Council made. They think we're alone. They think we're weak. They're wrong. He showed images of both the Eternal Resolve and the Unyielding Dawn. We have 2 warships now, and we have something else. We have the will to survive. We have ingenuity. We have each other. Whatever comes through our system's edge, we'll face it together. As the invasion fleet gathered in deep space, preparing for their jump to Earth, Ambassador Hai made one final attempt at peace. She broadcast a message on open channels, knowing the approaching fleets would hear it. This is Ambassador Hai of Earth. We know you're coming. We know your plans. And we're giving you this one chance to turn back. We don't want war. We never did. But if you force us to fight, you will learn the same lesson the Illuminar Defense Fleet learned. Humanity will survive. Can you say the same about your species? The three fleets ignored her message and jumped to faster-than-light travel, heading for Earth. In orbit above humanity's homeworld, the Eternal Resolve powered up its weapons. Captain Han watched the countdown timer to the enemy's arrival. Beside the Eternal Resolve, the unyielding Dawn took position. Captain G had made the deadline. The ship wasn't perfect, but it was ready to fight. All crews to battle stations, Han broadcast to both ships. This is the moment we've been preparing for. We defend our home. We show them that humanity doesn't back down. Remember New Sejong. Remember why we fight. The timer reached 0. 15,000 ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at Earth's edge. 3 massive fleets from 3 different species, all united in one goal: destroy humanity before it becomes unstoppable. They found 2 human warships waiting for them, and the stars themselves seemed to hold their breath, wondering which side would prevail. The species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia, or the newcomers who had dared to challenge the old order. Captain Han looked at the incoming fleet and thought about the architect's warning: become strong or become extinct. Humanity had chosen to become strong. Now they would prove that choice was the right one. All weapons hot, he ordered. Let's show them what happens when you threaten Earth. Let's show them why the stars trembled when we arrived. The battle for humanity's future was about to begin.